So today we'll be talking about how can we create entries in the table of our database. For example, we have the users table in our database, right? And if we can see, we have this users table in our database. Now we want to have a form, and when we fill the form and click the submit button, the data should be stored um, in our users table. So let's do that, right? So if we go to our code and look into this route file, first we need to create a route that gives us the form. And when we fill the form, we should be able to submit the users, right? So for that, let's create a new route. Let's say users slash create, and then we're gonna have user controller class, and we will have a method named create. So let's quickly create a controller. Now user controller is created, and inside this user controller we will create a new method called create, right? And it should return us a view. Let's say the view is user create. So inside this views folder, I'm going to create a new folder that's user, and inside this user I'm going to create a new file called create.plate.php, right? So this file should have the form, and then when we submit the form, it should be stored in our database. So let's have body up here, and let me create a form, right? And we're gonna have name and email and password, right? Let's say enter your name. Name, email, password. I'm not gonna make like the user registration with the confirm password and everything. For now, let's just have only one password, right? Just to show you how can we insert the data inside the database. And there should be a button that says submit, right? Now if we go to this URL, that is users/create, we should be able to see this form, right? This looks good. Now if we go to this file, when we click on the submit, it should be redirected to different URL where we handle the process of submission, right? So for that, let's create action, and then the method should be post. We're gonna make a post request to this URL, and also for the CSRF protection, Laravel gives us this @CSRF code, and we need to have, when we use this code, it also sends the CSRF token in the request. So alright, this looks good. Now let's go to this URL, and I'm gonna need the post request for /users, right? And I'm gonna create a new method called store. If we go to this user controller, I'm going to create this method called store, and we need to access the request data, right? Let me die and dump the request up here. So when we click on submit, it makes the post request to slash users, and this URL goes to our store method inside this user controller, and we're gonna see the request, right? Now for the name, I'm gonna say dude and email and password. Let's just say password, right? Now when we click on submit, we are seeing the request, right? And if we look into this request, we are seeing this token. This token is actually, we are getting this token from the CSRF. This is actually a CSRF token that protects our application from CSRF attack, right? And these are the values that we have sent in the request, right? So now to access those values, I'm going to say request name, and email should be request email, and password should be request password, right? And to create the entry inside this table, we can use the model that is user model, and we have this method called create, and inside this method we can pass an array with the column name as name and the value for the name, that is name. And for the email, we're going to set the email from the form, and in the password we're going to get the values of password, right? And let's die and dump and say created, right? If I go and refresh this page, it says created, and if we go and look into this table, now we have dude and email and password set in the Laravel. Actually, this password is encrypted by the Laravel itself, right? So that's good. Now let's try to fill the another name, right? Let's say dude2, and for the email and password, let's say password2. Now let's hit the submit button, right? It again says created, and inside this database we can see this the name and email, the password, that sort of things, right? So this is how you can store the data inside the table of our database.